to the courage to be courageous.
This is Dan Bolen. I'd like to welcome all of you to my podcast, The Courage to Be Courageous, where people come from all over the world to talk about their fear and how they've learned courage to overcome it. I think we have an incredible guest today, and I want to tell you a little bit about how I met her. First of all, her name is Susan Montag, and Steve Pedersen has a website called Bursting Through, and he wrote an article which I read called The True Human Spirit. I was so impressed with that, I wanted to interview Susan. I think you'll find the story impactful. I think you'll find it very helpful, and I think you'll find it very encouraging. So I'd like to welcome you, Susan, to my podcast. And again, if you want to go ahead and check out the Bursting Through and listen to some more of Susan's story, it's Steve, S-T-E-V-E, Pedersen, or Peterson, P-E-T-E-R-S-E-N, at substack.com. And that's substack.com. You're going to find that article is fantastic. And we're going to hit on probably a few points of that, but we're going to expand it even a little bit more into more of a personal situation with Susan and how she's been so supportive of our community. Susan, tell us a little bit about your education and where you're at with your life right now as a writer.
Yeah, so I decided to get a Master's of Fine Art in Writing, and I left teaching probably in 2015, I think. Just have been working on my own writing since then. I have a state job. I work at for the state of Minnesota, and I actually love my job. Is government kind of being dismantled? I feel like I'm a part of something important to, help hold Minnesota together.
You grew up in a very conservative society. Tell us a little bit how conservative it really was.
I grew up in a small town in southern Iowa. My family was not really religious, but we were really caught in the culture. A lot of racism, a lot of homophobia, the misogyny that we faced. And so it took a long time, I think, to really sort all of that out. It's a lifetime of dismantling that, I think.
And where did you go to after you dismantled it? You began to obviously deal with the opposite of what you saw.
I was a kid who, went to the library and scrounged around looking for books to read, always trying to find the next thing that would strike my fancy as far as books. I don't think that people who are intellectually curious and avid readers really can stay in that place in their head. I think that it pushes them out. Writers, their job, if they're really doing their job, is to push against things and move into things that are more uncomfortable for themselves and challenging to the people around them. If you're not making somebody uncomfortable as a writer, you're not really doing your job. So I think that that's where my journey has started and where it's taken me. So, yeah.
So, Susan, you came out of a culture with homophobia, racism, and you moved to a culture of, I would say, more liberal. How did you feel about moving to the culture, and what did you do to support the LGBT community? How did that all happen for you?
At the time, in the town where I grew up, if you were perceived as being gay, you got beat up. Just talking to people, being open to talking to people, and just learning more all the time.
Tell me a little bit about your children and how that came out for you.
Yeah, so I have a son, Rory. He recently got married. I performed the wedding in my living room. They were worried just about the climate of things, and so they wanted to do it quickly. And so I became ordained and performed the wedding with my new son-in-law, Nico. And Nico is trans. the things that are happening along those lines are just very scary to me. And
Yeah.
then I have a daughter, her name is Emma, and she has a little boy. We shouldn't have to be thinking about the safety of our gay children and our trans children and our kids who are pregnant or, any of those things. And yet we are. And so it's kind of unthinkable right now.
It is, and I get that. But so then when Roy came out to you, and I thought, tell us a little bit about the situation, how you reacted when he told you he was gay. Tell us a little bit how that, because I thought you handled it so well.
I don't know if there was any like really big moment, except that he did tell me he was dating a man once and we were just in the car together. I mean, and he was an adult person at this time and we were on the way to have dinner and he said, I'm dating someone. And I said, oh, who? And he said, well, he is. And he started telling me and I was just like, great. To me, it wasn't something that shocked me or that I really even had to process, because if it had been when I was in my early 20s, maybe it would given me some pause, but by the time, that he was an adult, it wasn't something that I had to, it didn't make me sad. I was just happy for him.
Well, and I think it's a gift you gave him by that. And I think it's a gift that you've given him and Nico by marrying them, because I think it shows the strength of who you are. I think it shows courage on Roy's part to come out to his mom and identify himself as gay. We're in a generation where many are still hiding who they are, and particularly with the new administration we're under right now. And you see the pressure that we're under. You see it, and it's gotten even more, excuse the expression, ugly recently. What's your thoughts about that?
The scary thing right now is that we don't have a good feeling for what is going to happen next. We can't even really guess. That's how I feel like, when you wake up in the morning, you can't even really guess what is going to happen. It just seems like it's chaos all the time. I do think that forming communities at a small level is good, to try to pull together with like-minded people. And I'm trying to do that with all different kinds of communities of people, but we need to kind of make nerve centers of support. We've kind of gotten to the point where, we're spending a lot of time on our phones. We're not seeing each other face to face as much, or, it seems that way. But to look for ways to, connect, meeting face to face, hopefully, and looking for those opportunities to support each other so that we know, we can check in with each other and spend time. And so I'm trying to do that as much as possible. We need to stand up. We need to speak. We need to look for opportunities to let people know that it's not acceptable and that this homophobic stuff and this transphobic stuff, it's not okay.
I even go to the extent, Susan, I think, it's not okay, it's inhuman.
As we are human beings, we all have two sides to ourselves, or many sides to ourselves, but we have goodness and love and hope and generosity, but we also have these things that are, jealousy and insecurity, hate. And what we're seeing right now is those bad things being cultivated by our leaders. And there has to be a force in the opposite of that. And it looks to me at this point that it's got to be people like me, you, everybody using our voices together, because it doesn't seem like our system is working to stop it. If worse comes to worse, we have to have those small communities to protect each other and to look out for each other.
Such a great point, Susan. We just can't be quiet, because if we're quiet, excuse the expression, we're going to be trampled on. You have to have a voice. You have to fight for what is right. We've come a long way, but we do not have equality.
I do hope that people understand that the child that you gave birth to is a person, and they're not a project or an accomplishment for you. They are themselves, right? They have to live their authentic human self. And unless we can understand that, then we're not doing justice to people. When you have children, they are their own person. You can love them and take care of them, but who they are is who they are. And if you're not ready to have a person in your life in all that they are, then you should rethink having children, So that's my thought about it. I don't know if that is what people want to hear, but that's kind of my thought.
You made a great point. They are who they are. They were born the way they are. And I think your story is such a powerful one for them to think about. Go back and rethink the beautiful things about your children, and also support who they are. And I think that's a key point, and I appreciate you talking about that. I want to just share one thought about the pyramid that we talked about. Just kind of tie that in a little bit with, I think you made a key point about the pyramid, and I think that helps us to understand kind of where we're at right now.
There's this kind of antiquated way of thinking that people are trying to go back to or hang on to, which is that there's a hierarchy, and at the top are heterosexual white men. And, your place under that is being submissive in some way, whether you're women or, trans people who are just we're just trying to erase their existence, or make gay people go back in the closet, or whatever it is. This way of thinking where, this white supremacist, homophobic way of thinking that is very, very dangerous, and trying to hang on to it, I think, is what's going on right now. I honestly think that the people in power don't care very much about people's sexuality. I think that they want power, they want money, and they're using transphobia and homophobia and racism and everything else, and saying things against immigrants and going against women. They're using that to stoke hate, to get people to riled up and on their side. The people who are falling for this, like street level MAGA people, if I could say that, they're playing on their deepest insecurities and their, what I think are jealousies. When you trap yourself in this binary way of thinking, where men are like this and women are like this, and if you step out of this, then there's something wrong with you. And, you have to guard yourself very carefully not to do anything that will make yourself suspect. You can't wear a pink shirt, or you can't, you have to follow these very strict guidelines. And they're actually taking tyranny and they're placing it on themselves. And they're living their lives in this very regimented way. And when they see people living authentically, they can't stand that. They have chosen to put this tyranny on themselves. I think it's just a lot of insecurity and jealousy that's being played on. Growing up in the culture that I grew up in, and knowing the people that I know, and I'm trying to write about it too, and kind of show what it kind of looks like.
Let's talk about the new book you got coming out.
I actually have two projects. One is a book that is actually coming out, and it's from a small press called Redbird Chapbooks, and the name of that book is Jenny 52. And it's not out yet, but it will be out. But then I'm working on a novel. And a novel is a kind of a huge commitment. It has a lot to do with a family that was divided because of our politics. I do have experience in that. I have lost close family members to the stuff that's going on. People who will not speak to me, or just my presence in the room would help make them fly into a rage. So I have to stay away. It's one of the biggest disappointments of my life to see some of my own people get sucked into this. I don't understand how they can so blindly follow and unquestioningly follow and believe the things that they believe, it has hurt me deeply.
It's hurt you deeply, and some of them don't even want to be in the room with you because of anger. What's the basis of that?
When your worldview is based on lies and hate, then it's very fragile, and you have to protect it because it could collapse if you get information that contradicts anything. If you have a wide worldview, that you can allow information to come in, right? You can let somebody tell you things that are new and you can process those, like, oh, I didn't know that. You might change your mind if somebody says something to you. But if your worldview is very closed off and based on lies, you can't let new information in. So they're very guarded and they get extremely mad. Anybody who knows what I'm talking about, who has a family member like this, they know how mad these people get. If you contradict them or you try to give them new information, they fly off the handle because they cannot handle new information. That house of cards that they have in their head has to be protected.
I always ask my people who are guests on my podcast, is there anything about your life and your viewpoint, and you're a courageous, strong woman, that you would like to leave with those of my listeners for them to continue to be supportive of the LGBT community? Is there anything that comes to your mind as a final words that you would like to share with our audience?
What we may need to do right now is to continue to tell each other the truth all the time. We're about to enter into a time where, and we are in that time, where the truth is purposely obscured all the time. Misinformation is in our faces all the time. And that support is going to be really important. And to look people in the eye, and say, what you are experiencing is real.
There's some things that are coming against the LGBT community. That's where we're heading right now. We have to have a voice to fight these types of legislations. As you know, I produced a book called The Courage to be Courageous that came out in August of 2022. All the proceeds of that book go to support the Trevor Project, Outright International, and the SAGE organization. Obviously, many of their funds have been cut, because of the administration. So if you want to go to my website, you can purchase the book there and realize that all the proceeds are going to support those three organizations. I think the SAGE group just had a win with one of the judges on one of the cases that of discrimination against the LGBT community. Let's face it, they're in a fight, a big fight. Again, Susan, thank you so much. You've been a great gift. And thank you so much for being a heterosexual ally of our community.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate being on. Yeah.
Okay, you take care now and have a great day.
Okay, bye.